On today's podcast,
mind that set me on fire mentally, and then I just need the vehicle after that to actually apply it to, and so that's kind of where we started.
the truth is, adding value will never go out of style.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast. I've got a great guest here today, and Julian Hall owns Covenant Roofing and Covenant Solar, and a very successful local entrepreneur, and great guy on top of that from everything I've ever heard. So if there's a bunch of negative out there, I haven't heard it. Our first one since we've done post-COVID, if we can say post-COVID, but getting back to normal. So Julian, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Brian, and I'm excited to be here, share a little bit, and to just hear a little bit about you as well.
Awesome. Well, we were just talking about a second ago, bringing up the military component, which I didn't realize you grew up in Vietnam, North Carolina. Obviously, we've got that in common. I didn't grow up there, but being there in the 82nd Airborne Division for 2.5 years was a great experience for the most part. But tell us a little bit about growing up.
So I was actually born in Frankfurt, Germany, because my father was also in the 82nd Airborne, John Master there, and so he got out at Fort Bragg, and so I grew up in Fayetteville, and so the military and that lifestyle and our veterans always meant a lot to me. So that is something that even to this day in business, it's one of the big things that we give to is organizations that take care of our veterans and their families and things like that. So, but yeah, so that was ingrained in me. I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and it was nice. I went to a private Christian school down there called Northwood Temple Academy, and went there K through 12th grade, and played baseball growing up. Those types of things. So instilled in me a lot of just discipline and competitiveness and that type of thing growing up. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest things you learned from, obviously Dad being in the military? I think there's a stereotype that comes with a dad in the military. A lot of it's probably true. My kids have probably vouched to some of that. Their mothers in the military as well. But what are some of the things you gained from his background?
Yeah, so it's interesting, like you said, there's a stigma on that. Dad in the military, he was also a drill sergeant at one point.
Oh boy.
And so while he was turned, I would actually say my fear was more in my mom than it was in my dad growing up. Yeah, she kept a tight ship there, and boundaries were pretty tight. So I had a healthy respect for both of my parents. But one thing is respect for authority was instilled in us from day one, that no matter what it was, whether you agreed with them or you didn't agree, if you started something, you had to finish it, those types of things. So that would be what I really learned from both of them growing up. So, yeah.
And the thing I like to say about that, because I see, obviously, there's so many things socially we could go into just with that comment, but, at the end of the day, it's we don't have to agree with authority sometimes, but there's a way to go about disagreeing. I think there's a proper way to go about it, and I think we could probably talk for the whole podcast on that. But at the end of the day, I think it's a very healthy thing to learn that and those boundaries. By the way, thank you for the business. You've been a great client for years. We do your home and your business security, so thank you for that. I want to make sure I mention that. And before we dive into the childhood and how we got here, congratulations also. You just got married?
Yeah, did. Yeah, that's been good.
I mean, you two are like just picture perfect. It's just both good looking, sharp young professionals. And there's a lot of times where, being honest, like I see people get married, I'll say, well, that ain't going to work. That ain't going to last long, But when I look at you two, I'm like, I don't know, that looks like it works, just from the cosmetics and knowing a little bit about you. And but so congratulations on that. What's been the obviously probably been one of the highlights for the last year or so?
Yeah, absolutely. We met each other in Chicago, and to be honest, weren't looking at dating. We both knew what we were looking for, and I think that it just was a good match for us. But yeah, I'll be honest, it's been a pleasure in my life, and she's been amazing to be with, and we both are driven, have goals, and they align. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. And kind of one of the things I was talking to one of my single friends about recently, we were talking about, when you be in a business, you meet people, whether it's, clients or networking or this and that. It's like when's it appropriate to kind of make a pass, hit on someone, however you want to say it. And I was just saying, like, listen, if the chemistry's there, you're going to know it. Unlike some guys that just swing the bat at everything, and hoping they hit something once in a while. But I think, women will give you cues. And if you're not getting cues, it's probably not there. It's probably not a two-way street. So you move on. So starting out in Fayetteville, starting up with a military childhood, obviously, you look like you're really, really good shape, probably growing up playing sports and that sort of thing. Obviously, that was instilled into you. The discipline's going to pan out when it comes to that as well. So how'd you end up in Raleigh, North Carolina?
Yeah, so I basically, coming out of high school, I went to Campbell University on an academic scholarship, and that didn't really pan out too well after the first semester. I ended up not having that drive that I had in high school for some reason, and so it just wasn't interesting to me, so I went to Pitt Community College the next semester, and then after that I just realized, I'm probably wasting my parents' money here, and so I dropped out. I actually went straight into Amway, got in there, had a friend of mine reach out, and so that was pretty impactful, because at that time I started really learning the difference between employee and business owner mindset, and all of these. I got introduced to books and learning and things like that. So while I dropped out of college, I continued my learning, and so over the next 2 years, actually from 19 to 21, I probably read between 400 and 500 books. In high school, I hadn't read one book, so that was me submerging my mind into positive and overcoming stories and autobiographies from Phil Knight to Sam Walton to Jobs, all of these guys that are giants in business that had just overcoming incredible odds in their lives, and just being able to build up that library in my own mind, that set me on fire mentally, and then I just need a vehicle after that to actually apply it to, and so that's kind of where we started.
So excited you brought this up. A lot of people might look at I went to college and I, for all intents and purposes, I failed. I started something that I didn't complete. But what I love about these type of stories is, there's John Maxwell. Donovan was just listening to some John Maxwell. One of the things I love is, that I heard a long time ago is you win or you learn. And so when I hear your story, I relate to it, number one. But number two, you went to college and you learned that you didn't want to be in those type of things. I'm extremely driven. I was never driven in high school or elementary school. I did well. I'm A's and B's, and some C's, but I never did homework, almost never. But what you learned is that you've got more of an entrepreneurial mindset versus going to be an attorney or a doctor. And there's no right or wrong. But you started off college, and being self-aware, you realized, I'm not feeling this. And so I'm going to take a different path, which could be criticized by a lot of people. I'm sure the parents were probably disappointed. And you know what? But now they probably look back and say, hey, Julian, he made the right decision for him. And so, God, there's so many principles out of this one story. So understand when you're making decisions for you, you have to know that there's going to be criticism from people that love you, people that want the best for you, but people that maybe don't understand internally, this is your journey, and I'm going to make decisions for me. Similar to when I left a salary job and I was 23 years old to go straight commission into security. I got criticized by everybody except for the guy who was recruiting me. He was going to make money on me. But, that put me on this 23-year path. And, looking back, I made more money in the first month of security than I had made, in any month prior. So it's sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. But if you follow your heart and you know that, hey, I feel guided this way, you just got to trust yourself.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like about that is, for me, when I teach people and talk to them, and I can tell that they want something more out of life for themselves and for their families. I always tell them the first thing you've got to do is change your environment. You got to change who you're around. You got to get people who have either already gone there and done it, that are willing to help, or people who are going in the same direction. In fact, I'm going to be speaking to at Thales College to some of the 11th and 12th graders that are considering all of these different paths, and I get to speak on entrepreneurship and things like that.
Awesome.
And so what's exciting, what I am going to speak to them about is who you are, who you associate with. And so whether they realize it or not, even on their small scale, they're usually hanging around, the baseball players are hanging around baseball players or sports guys. Right. The band is hanging around band players and things. So it's already happening in their world, and it's going to happen again in the next world that they step into in their next season of life. So they've got to choose that and be purposeful about the people that they put around themselves.
Sure. And one of my favorite sayings that I don't know if I ever heard anybody else say it, but I said, life's like an elevator. Sometimes you got to stop and let people off, because if you're trying to go up, they may not want to go up, and that's okay. They can be good people, but they might, I would never cut off a friend just because they're not ambitious or don't want to go where I do. But I will be very aware of what you just talked about. I am the sum of my 5 closest people that are around me. What I'm thinking about, my level of percentage of my income that's going towards investments, or am I delaying gratification in my business? Do I go buy this, or do I hire another technician? Do I make investments in my business and delay gratification? And all of that comes from the books and the audio, which obviously you're a lot like me. I probably read 500 books as well, somewhere in that range, or audiobooks, that sort of thing. And listening to it this morning, I'm sure you're probably the same way. But associating with the right people is a great way to level up. And you just got to look at who you're associating with, because decisions you're making, they're definitely impacting your decisions. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and one of the things is, once I got into Amway, I actually started to try to recruit people for it at a higher level. Mm-hmm. And so, I was working at an auto car wash, East Millbrook, and I was trying to recruit somebody, and they actually said, well, actually, I'm looking for some salesmen, and they owned a roofing company and was a public adjuster and all this stuff. And so that's how I actually got into the industry that I'm in awesome today. So it's kind of funny how that works out.
So they recognized, here it is. Here's another principle. You're growing, you're working on your mental game. You're growing, you're improving yourself. You're taking the initiative to try to grow your business, and an opportunity presents itself, and so you grab the most of the opportunity. And being the entrepreneurial mindset, I'm sure you did really well in sales, and you started crushing it there. And then the next level is, I want to own my own business, which is, I'm sure, what happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, it was funny because I hadn't thought I was going to do it as quickly as possible, but he left, went to Texas, owed me about $30,000 in commission, and I was like, well, this is about the time that I can do it, because I had a child on the way, and it was just need to make that jump. So I decided to make that leap, and I figured if I brought integrity to the business and to what I know, at the end of the day, we'd rise to the top. Because in construction, it has a stigma around it. If you answer the phone and call back, you're going to get the business.
Yeah, you're in the top 10, 20% for sure.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me how many people don't understand the value of accountability. And even if I don't have good news for you, I'm going to have the conversation. And that way people know that, okay, well, you're there and I'm not going away. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. Even if it's not going smooth, just owning that and saying, listen, I've got the ball. Someone else dropped it on my team or something along those lines, but I've got the ball now, and I'm going through the line. We're going to get this finished.
Yeah, and I encourage people, with your business, when you're looking at the scoreboard, include that in your scoreboard. The fact that you're following up with people, that you care about your clients that you do have, and you don't get so far ahead where all your focus is on clients you don't have yet. Care about the ones that you do have, and a referral is going to take care of itself. That's super important. So many get somebody on the hook, and then they're on to the next one, and they don't take care of that client. That client could be your 5 next ones. So it's just super important.
And the one thing I will say about that is 98% of the people are really, just good, solid people. That 1 to 2% is going to wear you out. I don't know, whatever business you're in, there's just that 1 to 2% of people that are just going to be the problems. They don't want to pay for anything. You can bend over backwards. It's still not enough. You just have to, I think, be able to sleep at night knowing that, hey, I gave that client everything we've got and then some. We've done our good. We've done a job. Let me ask you this. Being a business owner, first off, everybody thinks it just rains money for us, which it doesn't. For most of us anyway. We don't have a, software program that we write and it, we're selling it for 10,000 times what we got in it. Contractors work on margins. Security company, we've got extremely thin margins. We actually have to invest in clients, which makes it tough. But what advice would you give for someone who's thinking about starting a business?
Yeah, so this is a pretty cool loaded question that...
Maybe just a couple things. Yeah, obviously there's a lot. Yeah.
Actually, I have a pretty cool thought about it, because I talk to a good amount of people about this and when starting a business. But I talk about this in the form of, if you're starting anything in life, count the cost first. Make sure that it's something that you're willing to give up, because what they don't tell you about starting a business is there's a cost to it, to your life, to your lifestyle. At first, it's not going to look like what you see.
Not 9 to 5.
No, it's
you
not
don't turn
9
it
to
off.
5.
It's always on.
And I always tell people, I used to get up if it was storming in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and a customer for some reason had water coming in the house. Guess what? I had to get up and go fix that. Call the roofer, and we're out there together on the roof in the middle of the night trying to find a leak. So that type of stuff happens. So when I say count the costs, make sure that you're really willing to give it your all there, and then realize too, understanding that failure is not final until you give up on that. So but outside of that, after you've counted the costs and you believe, then I truly would say make sure that you have some type of business plan that's covering what you're doing, and make sure you understand how it's going to be profitable. A lot of people, you'd be super surprised. A lot of people have, like you're saying, the idea, and then they really don't really understand how they're going to make money out of the business. I've talked to a lot of people, and there is not a plan to be profitable, and so understanding that aspect of business is very important. Understanding how you're going to get sales, how you're going to add clients. To me, and I understand certain people approach this differently. To me, that's the first aspect, is nothing happens until you sell something. So sales first mindset there, and then surround yourself with your weaknesses. If you're weak at process and operations and detail, get somebody who's good at that in the industry with it. If you're good at that and you're not good at sales, find a salesperson that to partner up with 100% commission, let them eat what they kill, and do that first before you start your company. Get somebody that you can trust on the sales side of things. So that's where, those are the two major things. You can outsource finance to start out with, but at the end of the day, those are the three components that run a business: sales, ops, and finance. So but starting out, you definitely need sales and ops, and that's what I would.
It's a great thing. I mean, in retrospect, I could always sell, so I always had that main part covered. And when you can sell, you can kind of figure everything else out because you got the revenue to do it with. So I'm fortunate in that respect, but I've made those admin mistakes. I've filed taxes late, not realizing it's $195 a month when you file late, on top of the interest and all that other stuff. So that was not fun. Even though I lost money, technically lost money, you still owe them the $195 and all that stuff. So, it's these little things you learn along the way, the workman's comp issues. You get someone scamming you for workman's comp and not realizing that when, I won't say their name, but the insurance company is dropping the ball, and I've got everything we need to refute it, but they drop the ball, and it ends up costing me $1,200 a month after that, for the mod rating going up and all that kind of stuff. So many things, but I think you hit the nail on the head. If you're not really good in sales, you need to learn it to an extent. But if you're not naturally gifted to an extent in that area, again, drawing back on John Maxwell, if I'm going to use me as an example, I'm probably a 4, maybe a 5 naturally in administration. I hate it. I despise it. Taxes, QuickBooks, spreadsheets, I'd rather go to the dentist. And if I work really hard on that, I can maybe get to a 6, 7, or 8, but nobody pays big money for 6, 7s, or 8s. Whereas I'm naturally inclined in sales, maybe I'm a natural 6 or a 7 or an 8 in that area. So if I work real hard in that, I can be a 10, and that's what people pay for. So really understanding the self-awareness going into before starting the business for sure. I think that's a great tip. Advice for employees.
Yeah, we actually, John Maxwell's big, and we use 5 levels of leadership in our companies. And one of the other things for employees is the other, I would say, great is good to great writer, Jim Collins, get the right people on the bus and the right people in the right seats. We definitely follow that model, and we have a couple of tools that we use to do that. And but without those tools, and if you don't have access to those, a simple way of putting it is defining your seats first. So what your structure needs to look like. Then you define each seat and the behaviors needed to be successful in that seat, whether it's admin that needs to be detailed and they need to, it doesn't matter if they're real sociable or like a lot of people, they just need to be detailed and enjoy giving you accurate work. Then you can go find people that love that aspect of life, and then you need business development or a salesperson who needs to connect with people and be a self-starter, not need to punch in a clock or anything like that, and they're not really detailed. Perfect. Go put them in sales, and that's the behavior set you need for that seat. And so that's what we focus on. And I would say as a business owner, you want to be 80% or better at putting the right person in the right seat. If you're not 80% better, it's going to be very difficult to scale a business.
So essentially, having a blueprint of your organization ahead of time. E-Myth talks about that as well, is drawing out your organization. What does it look like 5 years from now? And then, your name is in every bubble right now because you just started. You got to do it all. But the goal is, what am I best at? And I need to get someone else in this bubble that I'm weak at as quickly as possible. course, you got to generate enough revenue to be able to do it. What do you think the biggest mistake employees are making, generally speaking, from your experience, obviously? Employees. So this is advice to employees. You want to make more money, employees?
Yep.
You know.
The biggest mistake that I see is the fact that employees often equate success with going up as far as in management or leadership. And sometimes that's just not a person's capacity.
Mm-hmm. Not their skill set.
Doing your job very, very well, and then if you are in management, having other people do their job very well is more beneficial than you doing yours. At the end of the day, that is you doing your job very well. But I would say that's the biggest one is sometimes the employee thinks they need to be in management, and management thinks they need to, make themselves look good without the team. And that's the dynamic that you want your management and leadership making your team look really well, and you want the team members bringing benefit. I think a lot of times they'll bring issues without a
solution.
Solution.
That's a military thing, isn't it? Because don't complain. Don't come to me with complaints unless you have a solution with it as well. Be willing to be part of the solution, not the problem. Anybody can complain. There is no perfect organization. Everybody's got great ideas. I love it when I'm hiring and training and working with new people and they've got all these great ideas. It's like, why don't we implement the ones that you and I talked about before you start coming up with more work for me to do? I've got lots of great ideas. I need people that can implement and do it at a high level. But I think a lot of what you said is really good advice, because it's easy to look at somebody's title because they're a manager and equate that to moving up the ladder. But you got the self-awareness thing. You got to know yourself. Gary Vee says it all the time. Everybody wants to be a Zuckerberg to start Facebook, but number 4 made a lot of money too. And that number 4 might not be a good number 1.
And for us, and when I say that, it's an interesting answer because you have to find an organization that understands how to reward that. Mm-hmm. In our organization, we don't reward just because you're going up, but we know how to identify what you're good at, and then we measure those measurables, and you're bonused out and things like that. You can make good money, not having to be in a leadership or management position.
That's awesome. Well, that's part of the success of the organization. As a good tip for employers. So last thing, we'll just kind of wrap up with obviously being a pro in the roofing industry and the solar industry. 5 things that you think people should know when they're making a roofing choice or a solar choice.
Yeah. So one of the things is that we went into the solar business because it complements roofing very well. If you're going to get solar solar's a long-term product, 25 plus years on the warranty and things like that. We have limited lifetime guarantee or warranty, on that product. And so if you're going to get solar, just understanding that your roof has to be replaced, let's say 1 to 5 years from now, you might as well go ahead and look and roll in that together. And here's the advantage of it is that the 26% tax credit that you get from the Fed on solar, you'll get that on the roofing product as well whenever
when it's all rolled
bundled
up.
it together. So
that's smart.
So it's very advantageous to do it all at once. So that's number one. You want to have a company that understands that and is up to speed on the tax credit, on all the new technology. And when I say new technology, we have had 3 generations of panels already this year. So it's a very fast-paced moving industry, and the tech is getting way better. They're getting way more energy efficient out of a smaller unit and things like that. On the roofing side, I would say you're looking for a company that's going to be around. They're going to offer good warranties, but then also you're looking for one that's going to give you options when it comes to long-term versus short-term investment. So, and what I mean by that is, are they, going to be the lowest price today so that, you may not get the best shingles on the market, or are they going to give you the option and tell you about the best shingles on the market? A lot of people just aren't in that business. They're here today, gone tomorrow, because it's a low entry industry, and a lot of people don't understand roofing's a low entry industry. So weeding out between what's a true company that brings value, like ourselves, and a Baker Roofing, and so what brings value versus what's just here today and then it's gone tomorrow, and you can't get a hold of anybody 5 years from now.
Sure.
So, yeah.
We get a lot of that as well. People pay, some jackleg to install the BJ's camera system and this and that, and it's like, no, we don't work on those. If they were good, we would install them. I'm sure you're having lots of problems. We get these calls every week, and it's unfortunate you went with some guy who you can't get a hold of now. He installed it for you. He might have been familiar with it, but we're not. We're not gonna go learn an entirely new system just for you, because you went with the shade tree mechanic initially. So there's a price to be paid for quality.
Absolutely.
But you're going to be there.
Yep, we're going to be there. The company puts a lot of value in that. That we have to invest in that. To be that company that provides that value, you have to invest in that, and so we do. But we still believe, even at our pricing, our value is way more than what our pricing is. But that's something that, since we're going to be a community company and we're going to be there for the community for a long period of time, we embed ourselves in giving back and things like that, then that's okay for us. It's all right for us to give more value. So, yeah.
So those are a couple things. What else would you say about just in general, just choosing a company to do either one of those things? It's obviously nice having choices, getting educated about the product.
And educated about the product. The other side of it is, because with anything, you go with the sale off of trust. And so making sure that, that company is doing the back end things, if you will. So I would do your research on your Google reviews and homework, just to see, there's always, like we were talking about earlier, we're in business, so there's always that 10% that you're just not going to make happy. But make sure the Google reviews are at least 4.5 or above, and make sure they have a lot of them. Make sure they're not in the bottom tier with 5 or 10 reviews, something like that. So do your homework there. I would definitely encourage that. And then I would, if they can, if a salesman, I used to actually bring a referral sheet so you can call somebody. It's always nice to see how the process went. And one of the things that was very valuable is the fact that once I told them what the process was, and they called somebody and they said that was the exact process, that's valuable. Especially it puts you at peace and ease of mind as a homeowner and as a maybe a building property owner.
And I haven't really done a ton of sales lately, but one of the things I used to love saying is people that wanted referrals, I would say, absolutely, I'd love to get them for you, but if I get these for you, will you be one of my referrals that I can use in the future? Because, as a consumer, understand how important that is, and they're like, sure, I will, So that's a good little tip for salespeople there. But it really is amazing to me how many people don't understand marketing, don't understand, our competitors that don't have Google review pages. It's because they don't want them. They don't want you seeing what their clients are saying. Some of our competitions regret in setting up Yelp pages because they're terrible, but not a lot of people use Yelp. So it's always important to do your due diligence on the company. And it's always amazing to me when a realtor is recommending some one-star company out of Kansas or something, and it's because they're getting compensated from the security company. It's like, as a realtor, you really want to sell out your credibility for a couple $100. I want to list this house again when they upsize. I don't want to lose my credibility for a $200 gift card from some jackleg security company that's on their second name and probably won't be around in 5 years. So I can relate to that. So wrapping up, Julian, what is one last thing you'd like to end with?
Yeah, so when you're choosing solar, obviously the company and its values and things like that are important, the Google reviews, all of that. One of the bigger things about solar is because it's a newer industry from the retrospect that everybody's behind it now, infrastructure, going electrical vehicles, all of that is behind it. There are a lot of new companies in solar. And so because of that, you want to make sure that you're paying the right price. You should be somewhere close to the same costs, especially if you're financing, the same costs that you're already paying for your bill now. It can be over. I'm not saying that it's always going to be under and you're not always going to save money there, but you're going from renting to buying, and so you should be around that same cost. We've talked to a lot of people that are like, man, the prices we got were like 2 or 3 times higher, and that's just because it's unregulated, and so that can be, and honestly, 7-8 years ago, that's what gave it a bad stigma, because it was super unregulated and people were price gouging. Now it's a little bit more, but you still want to do your due diligence and make sure that that's a company that's really backed by a larger presence. Awesome. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for dropping in today, and hope you got some good stuff from us today, and I know I did. Thanks for your time, Julian.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Until next time, thank you. Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.